How do you get so strong at pull-ups that gravity almost feels non-existent? That something once impossible starts to become effortless? Well, as you're watching this, you may be working on your first pull-ups or already able to do quite a few. But if you want to go from I can do a couple reps to making them look effortless, there is still quite a difference. See, I've personally taken my pull-ups from beginner level to solid reps to now gravity-defying pulling strength. And I always see people get stuck somewhere in the middle. So in this video, I'll break down the best training principles to take the next step. Simple guidelines for you to follow that will build your strength and raw explosiveness. The key to unlocking a clean muscle up as well. The pull-up plateau. Here's how it typically goes with pull-ups. First, you start with a resistance band and work your way up until you get your first pull-up. Then you continue to show up about twice a week, do a few hard sets close to failure, and get stronger, eventually hitting some pretty clean pull-ups. And then you want to go here to the next level. But a lot of people never really make this transition. Instead, progress slows down, and while just spamming pull-ups work great in the beginning, suddenly it's like hard work alone stops being enough. So what happened? Well, in the beginning, your technique still isn't perfect. You are probably pulling a lot with your arms and not using your back muscles to the full potential yet. Essentially, when you push yourself and fail a set, it's not really that hard on your body since you're not at the absolute limit. That's why you can continue to push yourself almost every workout and watch your strength and technique improve simultaneously for a while. And then the plateau hits. Now your training starts to feel draining, repetitive, and you need a new stimulus. And that's my first takeaway of this video. The approach that actually works best in the beginning is not the one that will take you to the next level. Step 1. Progress the movement. The first and most important principle is to start progressing the movement itself instead of just grinding for more reps. If you want a truly strong pull-up, the first part of your workouts should be all about pulling as high as possible. Doing this before your regular pull-ups and specifically targeting explosiveness changes everything. And you want to do it earlier than you may think. You simply add a resistance band according to your level and pull with all you've got while leaning back. Explosiveness is best trained with low reps, so you can aim for about 3 to 6 per set. And over time, we don't add more repetitions. We only progress by pulling higher within that range. For this type of training, you stop your sets as soon as explosiveness fades. We don't want the reps to become slow or grinders. This works a different kind of strength, but that's also why some of you can do a lot of pull-ups but can't get over the bar in a muscle up. Now, when your explosiveness has declined, that's when you move on to standard pull-ups. These are still important for building strength and work capacity, and you have two options when it comes to progress, either to add more reps or to add extra weight. Reps are optimal for endurance and surprisingly helpful for building muscle, but for flying over the bar, weights are actually the preferred option. With weights, you kinda do the same thing, where the reps remain relatively low and the movement itself becomes more difficult. The extra weight simply requires you to generate more acceleration from the bottom, and what often happens once you remove them again is that it translates to effortless bodyweight reps. Finally, after your regular pull-ups, it's a good idea to finish with some horizontal pulling like rows. These are typically less demanding than pull-ups, so you can slow down the movement and focus on building muscle and stability. Here the focus is less on continuous overload and more on getting in some quality volume. So in any successful pulling workout, you want to move through 3 exercise domains. Diagonal pulling, where you progress by pulling higher, vertical pulling, where you progress by adding reps or weight, and then horizontal pulling, focusing on the quality of movement. If you follow this simple principle, your workouts will always have the most important exercises to get you stronger. Step 2. Weekly structure. Next, let's talk about frequency. How often should you train? Well, 2 sessions per week is actually a sustainable and solid option, but we need to do something about the fatigue building up. And for that, each session needs a different purpose. One day going all out and the other being lighter in nature as you try to avoid exhaustion. So for example, let's say you train Monday and Thursday. That makes 2 rest days between session 1 and 2, and then 3 rest days from 2 back to 1. Due to the extra rest, it makes sense to place the hardest session here and the lighter session over here. The overall structure of the workout stays the same, but there's a difference in exercise selection and intensity. Now, let's break down how each session works. Step 3. Hard versus light. The harder session is pretty straightforward. This is where you push the limits and chase new personal records. For diagonal pulling, pull as high as possible and track your progress. But the main thing here is to continue until your explosiveness drops. For vertical pulling, do as many reps as possible with body weight, and with added weight you try to one-up your progressive overload. For this you can aim to make the smallest possible increase to improve a tiny bit each session. And as a guideline, you want about 25 good reps in a session. So that could be a 5x5 for example, where you gradually increase the weight. And I'll emphasize that you can probably start weighted pull-ups sooner than you think if you begin with the lightest option. For the horizontal pulling, you also push yourself and go hard in this session to fully drain the back muscles. From a programming perspective, this is the easy part. All you gotta do is bring the intensity. In the lighter session, there's a bigger emphasis on variations and trying to avoid complete failure. For the diagonal pulling, this doesn't change all that much and you can still practice them like normal. But sometimes explosiveness is just not there, and if that's the case on this workout, you move directly to the vertical pulling. Here it can help to focus on slightly different exercises to offload some of the repetitive stress. Tempo reps, paused reps, even switching the grip. The difference between a chin-up and a pull-up is really very similar, yet the slight shift in angle can go a long way. With paused and tempo variations in particular, you'll need fewer reps with the same body weight or much less added weight to approach failure. This creates less strain on your nervous system, but if you're a beginner, remember to use a band if needed. As you can see, we still want to keep practicing a similar movement pattern, so the solution here is not just adding endless other exercises. We need the body to constantly remember the activation. Even when fully deloading, do them just at low intensity. As for the horizontal pulling, the same principle applies. We want good quality and we want to train close to failure but avoid complete exhaustion. Step 4. Technique. Having good technique makes a big difference, and it's a way to immediately improve how your pull-ups look and feel. So let's go over the most important technical cues. First up, the technique for an explosive pull-up is different from a regular one. When explosive, we want a narrower hand placement about shoulder width apart, and then we typically want to start from a small swing to generate momentum. The main difference though is that to move above the bar, we first need to move around it. And this requires you to lean back instead of pulling straight up. To make this possible, we want the shoulder blades to be neutral and the body position to be slightly hollow. In most cases, this happens naturally as you lean back, but you need to make sure that you're not overly arching your body like you would in a regular pull-up. Now when it comes to regular pull-ups, the most important thing is getting the bigger back muscles to take over. And I know a lot of people struggle with this activation, and especially with feeling their lats working. So here's my number 1 tip. It involves lifting the chest and looking straight up. Actively raising the chest automatically puts your shoulder blades in a strong retracted position. And looking straight up is a way to avoid collapsing as the reps start to become difficult. So keeping this posture throughout your set is exactly what draws out the right activation. And if you have trouble keeping your shoulder blades together, it's always a good idea to practice some scapular raises to improve your control. I have made a full video with all my tips to activate your back during pull-ups, so check that out if you're interested. Step 5. The plan. Putting everything together, we now have a pretty applicable approach. 2 sessions per week using the same overall structure, but one being harder and the other being lighter in nature. That's exactly the guidelines I followed myself. And of course, if you continue to feel fresh and powerful after the first session, you can go hard twice a week. So use the lighter session as a tool to manage your fatigue when necessary. If you want my complete programs to train for skills and aesthetics, I have that linked in the description. And before ending the video, I also quickly want to mention that if you're looking for some new calisthenics equipment, my sponsors at GoNation have some very high quality options. You can use my code Jacob10 for 10% off. I put the link in the description. That was it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next one.